What's happening, friends? Welcome to the debut edition of the 2025 season of Syracuse football postgame presented by Krause Health. You got Brent Axe here. You got Chris Carlson live in Atlanta, and we are following a 45-26 loss for Syracuse. They fall to the Tennessee Volunteers at Mercedes-Benz Stadium to start the 2025 season. We got plenty to come here on this matchup. We're looking forward to hearing from our Syracuse Sports Insiders a little bit later on in the show. You guys had plenty to say during the game. Loved interacting with you guys. As always, one of the great benefits of being a Syracuse Sports Insider. And I'll highlight some of the things you guys had to say about this one coming up. Some old problems from the past resurface for Syracuse. How did the new quarterback do? You've seen Willis having a pretty good game out there, and those things that Syracuse needs to work on from game 1 to game 2, the home opener against UConn coming up next week. And Chris, Tennessee certainly was going to be an uphill battle in a lot of ways for Syracuse, but it doesn't help when your biggest problem from a year ago resurfaces, right? And all training camp long, from Fran Brown on down, these coaches talked about how they had to be better at tackling, and that was not the case today as Syracuse struggled to contain Tennessee. 493 yards, and how about this, Chris? A nice even 247 yards passing and 246 yards rushing for Tennessee in a balanced effort there, led by new quarterback Joey Aguilar. I think that's what really jumps out at this game as one of Syracuse's biggest problems from a year ago, is one of its biggest problems so far through one game in 2025.
Yeah, I asked Fran about the defense afterwards, and what went wrong. He's just sort of like, "What do you want me to say?" And I was like, I thought maybe it was the tempo, or maybe Tennessee's just that good, but no, just the tackling that they spent all off season trying to fix is still bad. Now we will see what it looks like when it's not Tennessee. That is important, right? Mm-hmm. This is Syracuse played only one team last year that was maybe this good, and that was Miami, right? Like Syracuse did not face anything like this in terms of the level of physicality, the level of talent that Tennessee had. So the tackling looked bad today. I will be very interesting to see what it looks like against UConn, because that's not a great sign. It's not a great sign when you had a problem, you spent all off season saying you were going to fix it and you were working on fixing it, and then in the opener it's still a problem.
Yeah, Tank Wilson misses one tackle, 45-yard game. We know that Joey Aguilar is a mobile quarterback. That's the other big problem with the defense, Chris, is they could not generate any discernible pass rush. That was the opposite for Tennessee, who was in Steve Angeli's face all day. All things considered, I think Steve Angeli did okay, as we'll get into here in a moment. I thought he proved why he was the starting quarterback. I did have twinges of a thought during the game of how would a mobile quarterback do against this defense, and aggressive,
but only
defense?
But only because of that.
But
right?
only because of that.
Yeah,
right. Not like this guy's falling on his face. I want to see the other quarterback. I'm like, a little more legs, like even Joey Aguilar, who was out there for Tennessee. Just what would that look like? But never was I saying, God, get Ricky in there at this point. So we'll get to that, and a big offensive start today for Yassine Willis. But the other big problem with the defense, Chris, that they've got to work on here, and again, can you build that up in the next two games against UConn and Colgate before you go right back in the fire against Clemson? And it's the biggest question I had through training camp. We talked about it on the pod, and I think it was one of the biggest questions generally. Where was his pass rush going to come from, right? You bring in David Reese from Cal, who made a nice play in this game. David O on one side. Could Dennis Jacquez step up? You see the depth chart comes out this morning. There's Kevin Jobity as one of the primary kind of guys, if you will, on pass rush. This is a defense last year, despite its issues, that had a primary pass rusher in Fidel Diggs. Had a few guys that are in NFL practice squads right now. Justin Barron, Elijah Clark. We mentioned Diggs. And some guys that made those opportunistic impact plays. So pass rush is going to be something this team really needs to find a way to generate from someplace. And it's not coming just from the one-on-one matchups, right? Are they going to have to get creative with blitzes? Are they going to have to figure out a way to adjust the defense to get some sort of pass rush? Because straight up, we just haven't seen it from this team.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I think they have to. Because last year, the whole pass rush was Fadil and Marlowe. And, they didn't get better. Like, they didn't get anybody better than Fadil, and they didn't get anybody better than Marlowe. So, like, yeah, like they're gonna have to figure out a way to get a pass rush to me through stunts, through blitzes, through being creative. Um, you know, Derek McDonald is not really your blitzing linebacker. I
No.
don't think. I think he's like a stuff the run, steady hand guy. I don't know if Antoine Delorier, maybe he's a little bit more twitchy, but he's big. Like he's not a, you know, he's certainly super athletic. So can he be that guy with more experience? But like, now I'm asking the question to you, like, okay, can the true freshman generate the pass rush for you? Like, that's not great. Like, that's
if we're
not a
already
great place
asking
to
that
be.
question, yeah, we're in a problem. And the stunting and everything you brought up, now you're taking risks and you're
Right.
creating mismatches in that front as well. And of course, Marlowe Wax, who's not on the practice squad, he made the 53-man roster for the Chargers because he was all over the field and had a great preseason for San Diego. And the other big thing on defense, Chris, we knew this would be the case. He was going to struggle. You put a 17-year-old on the field against Tennessee in game one, as talented as he is. Demetres Samuel Jr. was targeted early and often by Tennessee, and quite often Tennessee was successful. He made a couple of plays out there. He showed that he can play, but man, Tennessee was like, we're going to throw it at you, and we're going to make you try and stop a receiver room that didn't have a lot of experience for Tennessee, but certainly has talent. And in game one, Chris, you got to say that young Demetres really struggled out there, and you're going to have to crank up the patience here. What can this coaching staff do to make a 17-year-old comfortable? They believe in his talent, and they believe in him, but clearly Tennessee put a game plan out there for teams. You don't have to be Tennessee to target a 17-year-old and be successful. They showed some ways that you can go at this kid and challenge him to absorb everything he possibly can and make plays out there. I think eventually Samuel's going to show he's a playmaker and show that faith that the Syracuse coaching staff put in him. But after game one, clearly a struggle out there for young Demetres.
Yeah, Tennessee went at him, 3 plays on the first drive, and he actually won 2 of those 3. I mean, so there were moments, right? Like he had the pass breakup, and then he had really good coverage on the third play. Fran was really complimentary afterwards. What else is he going to be game one into the season, right? You're not going to shred a 17-year-old, but was complimentary about how Demetres sort of responded mentally to getting beat on that pass interference, and then going back and making 2 plays, which is a good point. It also would be very easy for a true freshman to go totally in the tank at that point. And he didn't do that. He was just sort of up and down, riding the roller coaster. That's probably what a lot of this season is going to be when a true freshman is asked to play cornerback. It probably is going to be a little bit of a roller coaster. We've talked right. We did the comparison between him and Travis Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because he's going to play offense. Travis Hunter started at Jackson State. That is not the same thing as opening the season against Tennessee. It's not the same thing.
No, it's not. And we'll see Demetres. We didn't see him today on offense, but it's been talked about since the spring, really, and through camp as well, that
we'll see it against Colgate.
We will certainly see it against Colgate, maybe a little against UConn if Syracuse can build up a lead in that one. But, guys, UConn is no slouch here. That's a team that won 9 games last year, went to a bowl game, and who's Syracuse to be looking down on anybody at this point after getting humbled in game one. But it was interesting to see what would happen with Demetres, and yeah, certainly Tennessee went after him. That's on defense, Chris. Offensively, what did you think? We mentioned it briefly at the beginning here, but Steve Angeli went out there. The numbers looked like this: 23 of 40, 274 yards. He threw a touchdown. He threw an interception. He was under duress all day. He was sacked 5 times. Got out of pressure at times. Again, I was kind of wondering what would a more mobile quarterback look like just in that setting, but I think he did a pretty decent job in doing that. Tennessee got a touchdown off of a fumble. He got popped, scoop, and score, right? And that was right after Syracuse had scored. That's Tennessee did that all day. Anytime Syracuse remotely looked like they were going to threaten this game.
They were so good at it.
They were so good at it. They responded to everything Syracuse did after jumping out in the first quarter. But by and large, Steve Angeli looked like a starting quarterback out there, and you could tell he has developed a kinship and a connection with Jonte Cook and was looking for him early and often. He led Syracuse today. Cook did with 6 catches for 58 yards.
Yeah, I was really I'm if I'm a Syracuse fan, I'm pretty optimistic about the offense. Like it is not stunning to me that Tennessee pressured the quarterback. Like, this is a team whose strength was the pass rush in the SEC. They're coming in here against the Syracuse team with 4 new offensive linemen, and we don't know how good any of them really are. It doesn't shock me that Tennessee pressured Angeli, but like when they protected him or when he was able to get the throws off, like, good things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Syracuse does play a lot of good pass rushers this year because we've talked about the schedule, is tough. But they're also going to play some average pass rushes and some normal ACC pass rushes. And I saw enough good things from Angeli to think that the offense will be good in those moments. They're going to have to protect him better. The offensive line is going to have to come along. But they scored points, when they were able to protect him. So I feel pretty good about Angeli. If I'm a Syracuse fan, and Fran said afterwards he thought the player they need to feed the rock to is Yassine Willis. He wants to give him more touches. I don't know how many more carries than 23. I don't know how many more carries you want to give him, but he played great. I mean, first carry of the game, they handed it to him. He was hit in the backfield, and he bowled through a Tennessee defender for like a 4-yard gain. So I'm like, okay, if we can do that against Tennessee, I feel, again, the schedule is tough, but when we're playing average to above average ACC teams, I think Yassine Willis can be really good.
He was great, and we saw flashes of it last year. I mean, nobody's been a bigger fan of Yassine than me, but knowing he had to develop, he had to get the freshman kinks out and just figure it out. The encouraging thing is, Chris, you said it. He did this today against Tennessee. Bulls a guy forward for 4 yards, takes a pitch and goes around the corner and scores. There was a great goal line play where he jumps up, that great image you see in football, reach the football out, try and break the plane, which takes strength. That is not a question mark. Syracuse has a weapon in Willis in that backfield. It's a Syracuse Syracuse rushing game that was 125th in the country last year. Now, LaQuint Allen certainly made big plays, and he did it in the passing game as well. He made up for it with bigger plays as opposed to just the day-by-day rushing numbers, because Syracuse had the number 1 passing offense in the country a year ago. I can safely assume the rushing game is going to rank a little higher than 125th in the country. And look, Will Nixon showed out there in this game today, what he was doing last year before he suffered the Liz Frank injury and had to go out. And Malachi James, they tried to work in there. We didn't see the big breakout today, but you're just waiting for that big Malachi James bust-out run, which we heard he was happening throughout training camp. And he's got that elite speed, which at some point is going to show itself. So that's the encouraging thing, Chris. As you said it, as much as the offensive line had to work on some things, Tennessee's going to get pass rush on people. They're one of the best defenses in the country. I think people, by and large, feel pretty good about this offense. It's the defense right now that's got more on the to-do list.
And I mean, I'm going to, we were talking, I thought Dan Villari looked good. A lot, right? He looked bad last year, and he looked good. He's gonna be a capable tight end. And we talked about the injuries that he was playing through last year that sort of explained his performance last year. But that made me optimistic about the offense. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, the defense is really they're gonna be okay on offense. Whether the defense is okay is going to really determine, I think, how successful this season is.
Yeah, Villari had 5 catches for 55 yards. Justice Ross Simmons had 3 catches for 50 yards. Tyshawn Russell gets out there, 3 catches for 40 yards. Darrell Gill Jr. didn't get targeted until the second half, but he ends up with a couple catches for 33 yards. And we mentioned Will Nixon can catch it out of the backfield. He had 2 catches for 29 yards. I'll say this. Justice Ross Simmons, my man got mugged all day. And we didn't see enough flags flying on that one. Both Tennessee and Syracuse, the Oscar goes to Demetres Samuel Jr., who had a nice soccer-like flop in the first half trying
A
to stop
lot
the
of
clock.
it. There was a lot of it up.
Woo! There was too much of it out there, honestly. And they're supposed to call that penalty this year. That's a new penalty where they're trying to. I mean, it's all. How do you make the call on that one? How hurt are you, young man? Right? Like it's easy to fake an injury, and
nobody wants to be the guy that's wrong, right?
Exactly.
Like God forbid you're the
Exactly.
you're the umpire that flags someone and like he tore his ACL.
Exactly.
And
You do
right?
not want to be that guy. But man, Tennessee was milking that for all it's worth in this game today. Chris, before we let you go and get you back on there to put up some great stories up on syracuse.com from Atlanta, what were some other things that Fran Brown said that stood out to you and just the experience of Atlanta today? Certainly an overwhelming Tennessee presence as we expected at Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, I'm trying, the thing Fran stressed, I think the most strongly, and I don't know if I believe him, but he defended like his guys in terms of like their talent level. When it was mostly about the offensive line, but I take it to mean the roster in general, where he said like, hey, people have come and said, you have to improve the talent here, but like we're fine, like we're good. I'm happy. The coaches need to do better. Now we saw last year, Fran is going to be the first guy to take the bullet. That is how he is. That is how he coaches. That's how he behaves in press conferences. But that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how that approach holds up because, Javon and I were talking. Syracuse plays 5 ranked teams this year.
Yeah.
This was supposedly the worst, right? This was supposedly the lowest ranked of the 5 ranked teams they played.
That's a good point.
And they were outmanned. They were. Right? Like, I mean, we all saw that. Like, they didn't play horrifically. Tennessee was better. So better hope that us folks in the media who are ranking teams are off.
The other thing that jumps out to me, I look at the box score afterwards, and I'm like, they only ended up with 4 penalties. In the first half, they were on pace, it seemed, for much more. There were a couple that were
big ones. The first 3 drives.
3 big ones. So it was more like, I don't want to say quality over quantity, but the impact of only 4 was bigger. And Chris, there was a couple that were declined anyway by Tennessee. You brought up Villari. There was a weird thing that happened a couple times in the first half. He lined up improperly, and one of the bad penalties in this game called by the refs, in one case, they were lined up, and they said Syracuse wasn't lined up. There was a lot of formation moving and guys running up and down the sideline. Jeff Nixon really mixing things up on the offense there. A lot of motion. So you do write off some of that the first game. Right?
And Jeff Nixon gets the benefit of the doubt.
Jeff Nixon absolutely gets the benefit of the doubt on that one. I don't think he screwed that up. I think, sometimes it's like a cop calling a 32 and a 30 mile per hour kind of thing. Like they were calling that very tightly. I don't think that's going to continue to be an issue, but there were other things, procedure penalties and things where you're like, I know it's game 1, but let's just not make that a habit kind of thing. But there are certain
the delay
things,
of game for the punt was not.
That wasn't good.
Like,
See, special teams, such a problem last year, and they couldn't line up to kick a punt on time. And there was a play, Chris, where Syracuse almost got burned. There was a punt that, I don't know, I think it actually did hit Kerr on the sideline. They were actually debating, like there was a towel that came off his back, and they're like, oh, is that part of the uniform? Because the ball hit the towel, and we were really getting into semantics on that one. But Syracuse caught a break there.
I don't blame Kerr for that, though, right? Like,
oh no, you can't. His back was turned to it. Yeah,
and he's
exactly.
blocking. He's trying to do his job. Like that is not the same special teams we saw last year.
No, but it would be just their luck that something like that would go against them with all their issues, right?
Sure.
Chris, thank you so much. Great job down there in Atlanta. Plenty more to come from you and Javon before you guys head back here to Central New York. But thanks for your great work today. Thanks for hopping on with us today, my friend. We'll see you soon.
All right, talk to you guys soon.
There he goes. Chris Carlson, ladies and gentlemen, reporting live from Atlanta here on Syracuse Sports, our live Syracuse football postgame show. We're going to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders coming up here shortly. You guys certainly had a lot to say during this game. Love the back and forth with you guys. And that's the benefit of being a Syracuse Sports Insider. You can see the info right there on your screen. If you sign up, you get direct text message access to me anytime, certainly during games. that thing gets smoke starts coming off my computer because you guys are telling me what you're seeing, what you want to see in the game, and then we ask you what you want to talk about here on the post-game show. We'll get to those comments coming up here, but you guys can text me anytime with your questions, your comments, your thoughts. You get breaking news from me first as an insider, exclusive commentary, exclusive video, a lot of exclusives for our Syracuse Sports Insiders, a lot of insight that we're not putting on social media and other places. We'd love for you to sign up today to become a Syracuse Sports Insider and get your voice exclusively heard here on our Syracuse football post-game show. So just a couple of things there before we get to our insiders, to go back to the defense. Look, Chris said it, and Javon said it, and that's a hell of a point. Like, Tennessee, in the eyes of some, might be the worst team that Syracuse plays this year. This defense has got to figure that out. They've got to. This is a big problem that carried over from last year, and I get last year is last year, and this year is this year. But you can't have a pattern like that. You can't have a defense that can't tackle, right? And Tank got banged up, came back in. George Rooks got banged up, came back in. Jobity got banged up. Devin Grant, we did not get an update on that, unfortunately. Look, Devin Grant missed a lot of tackles today and didn't have his best game, but you want a veteran safety out there, especially to back up a freshman cornerback in Demetres Samuel Jr. This defense has got to make big strides, especially in the next 2 weeks. Again, UConn is nobody's brushing them aside. Syracuse can't thumb their nose at teams like that, but it's a team you should be able to handle your business against in week 2 at home and improve in that department. And certainly Colgate on a Friday night at the Dome, you should be able to essentially go through like it's a practice and work on your tackling. This cannot be their Achilles heel all year. Every team misses tackles here and there, but the pattern, right? What can this defense hang its hat on at this point? They're missing tackles. They're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback. And that was an issue last year. What we saw throughout last season, opportunistic plays. Fidel Diggs, big fourth down stop against Georgia Tech. Fidel Diggs picks up the fumble in overtime against Virginia Tech. Syracuse escapes the Dome with a, 38-31 win over Virginia Tech. Even Cal, I'm going to say the name again, Fidel Diggs, makes a big play about 10 minutes ago in the fourth quarter to kind of seal that win. I mentioned Grant, huge defensive touchdown, which Syracuse did not have a lot of last year, but had a huge play in the Miami game. It was bend, but don't break, and opportunistic. So this is not a game one thing. That's my concern. We're not saying, it's game one, it'll get better. This was a problem all through last year. Fran Brown, Elijah Robinson, Robert Wright, every defensive coach we talked to in training camp did not hide, was not shy about the fact that tackling was a big problem. They mentioned how they studied the University of Iowa, who they credit for being a great tackling team. They had mentioned, Coach Wright mentioned this, about some NFL teams that they had studied. I don't know if they went to actual practices, but look, all these coaches are in the same ecosystem. They all know each other. It's a small world, right? So if somebody's doing something well, you better assure that coach is going to be knocking on the door in the offseason and say, tell me how you're doing this, right? That's what Syracuse did this offseason. Game one, it's like it never happened. It's like training camp never happened. It's like that emphasis never happened. And part of it's Tennessee. Tennessee is a big physical SEC team that's going to outmatch you. They're going to out-physical you, right? So that's part of it. And if you're on the field long enough, you're chasing around a mobile quarterback. Tennessee goes at a fast pace. So all that equals into it as well. But if this was such a big problem last year, with all the remaining games on the schedule, tougher than Tennessee, at least on paper at this point. We'll see how the season progresses and things will change. But this schedule doesn't let up. Like I said, you don't take UConn seriously. They could knock you off. Syracuse, remember, only beat that team by a touchdown last year. There was a couple of missed field goals there. Weird stuff happens. You cannot take them lightly. Other than Colgate, the schedule doesn't let up. Teams that can beat you at home. A Pitt that beat Syracuse last year. Boston College that beat them last year, right? Duke is a huge game for Syracuse at the end of September. So the home slate, the Halloween game against North Carolina, what an environment that's going to be. These are games you got to be tight on this stuff. So that, to me, is a very big concern with this team. I'm not concerned about the offense. I'd certainly like to see the offensive line get better, but I think there's enough bodies in that room that they'll find the right combination to do that. And let's not forget, they were mixing and matching that offensive line right up until game week, right? They're still trying to find the right combination on that offensive line. They got a few guys that can come off the bench and mix in there. I think that will settle in. And look, that's just college football. Tennessee had the same problem, by the way. They came in today with 4 new offensive linemen with a new quarterback that they acquired after spring practice. Same thing for Syracuse. They were fine. Syracuse couldn't generate any pass rush. That's the in-the-trenches report card that you have to look at and say, they're not quite there yet. It's better. Syracuse looks bigger than in recent years. Passes the look test. Fran was defending his guys, as Chris noted there. That's all true. I mean, look at Antoine Delorier, who gets the start over Derek McDonald. Poor McDonald just did not have a good game. He got bowled over on one touchdown run. There was, when it was 38-14, the touchdown pass, he was in coverage. I don't think McDonald's very good in pass coverage, so they've got to figure that out. We didn't hear Gary Bryant's name a lot today, the transfer. He's kind of getting his feet on the ground, right? But it's not just the up front that we're worried about, the pass rush. It's the linebackers in coverage. It's the linebackers tackling. And, of course, Samuel just got picked on today. But you start a 17-year-old kid, that's what's going to happen. He's going to get picked on. He had to go through the motions. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he had to literally go through the motions of being in a college football game, let alone 45,000 people in the heart of SEC country. What a way to drop a kid in the college football pool, right? But now he's got that, right, and can learn from that and take a step forward from that. So that's the concern you got to have right now. Last year, you had the number one passing attack in the country, and an opportunistic defense got bailed out, frankly, by an offense and by a quarterback and Kyle McCord that was just making plays left and right, but still was putting enough stress on its offense that the offense had to come out and put together that one last drive, that one last score, and just flat out outscore people. Does Syracuse have an offense that can do that? There's encouraging signs from the offense. I liked what I saw from Angeli today, but what we saw today too, that offense is going to function best as a traditional offense. Offensive line blocks. Angeli gets time to throw. Bing, bang, boom. Joey Aguilar, you watch on the other side, making plays with his legs, making throws on the run, extending plays by even a half second, 1 second that you need. I don't know if we're going to see that from Angeli. Now, they did start throwing Angeli rolling out. He was throwing a lot more on rollouts as the game progressed, and they needed to do that. That was a key adjustment made by Jeff Nixon, but you get a good pass rush, and Syracuse is, I mean, think of Clemson. You think Tennessee's defense is good? Clemson's got 3 or 4 first-round draft picks on its defense. Not that Tennessee doesn't. They actually didn't even have one today in Jermod McCoy, who's going to be a first-round cornerback. He's still recovering from an ACL injury and didn't even play today, right? So that's the concern you have here. When you play a tough schedule like this, you can't have mistakes like that. You can't have the procedure penalties. You can't miss tackles. You've got to be locked down on this stuff to have a chance to punch up on your schedule. So, enough of me. Let's see what our Syracuse Sports Insiders had to say about this one here today. We start with Madden Cuse, who says, "We lost to Stanford last year and still won 10 games. Only the strong survive. Now is not the time to be softer than baby poop. Man up. Obstacles get in your way. Keep moving." So my man's taking the optimistic approach. Mike McS here says, "I said it last year, and I'm more convinced now than ever. Elijah Robinson's scheme, tackling, and coaching is all screwed up. With this schedule, they're going to get creamed." And they got cut off a little bit here, but he says, if the missed tackles keep up at that rate. From Nathan M., who says, "I feel fine about the skill level talent on this team. The offensive line's been iffy. Whole defense is overmatched. Pre-snap, there would be an unblocked rusher, so that may be partially on Angeli to call that out." Yeah, there was a couple times today where Tennessee had a delayed blitz, a delayed pass rush, kind of looped around and came in just unseen, and Angeli I don't care how fast you are, you're not getting out of that play, right? So you kind of wonder, look, Angeli's got experience. He played in a college football playoff game, led Notre Dame on a huge drive against Penn State, has some experience. Actually, the last time he stood on a college football sideline was in that building for Notre Dame when they played Ohio State in the national championship game, right? Ohio State, who beat Texas today, by the way, 14-7 game in Columbus. Angeli's got to find those things, right? Pre-snap, what's going on, read defenses. And we heard through camp, he's the guy that had the composure, that could read the defenses, and had that presence that you need as a quarterback. It's only one game. Nobody's railing on him for that quite yet. But when you have a transfer quarterback, now he's got 2 years of eligibility. With McCord, it was more of a rushed sense of, we only got this guy for 12 games, and let's make the most of it. And boy, did they. He set the single-season ACC passing record last year. But you're on an accelerated pace, with these things, especially with veteran guys, to find and call that stuff out. From Matthew N., who says, cheers, Brent. We're encouraged. We're competing. We can move the ball. We can score. Amazing punts. Yes, the turnovers, and yes, a heavy opponent powerhouse, but we're going to be okay. So Matthew's got a positive outlook on this one. From Bob, who says, as great as Fran Brown has been with recruiting, this does show what a gap that remains between a mid-upper level SEC team and Syracuse in terms of athletes and talent. Yeah, they didn't completely close that gap under 1 year of Fran Brown, but have certainly made progress in that department. From Mikey K, who says, I honestly just see a new team that's just trying to find their way. I feel like if we played this game maybe 3 weeks into the season, it'd be a little different. I mean, this team was playing with nothing to lose in this game. Tennessee had everything to lose. Yeah, look, you had a scoop and score, big plays. There was a huge 4th and 10 play, that Syracuse converted. Loved that. Didn't love a couple of 4th down calls. Look, if you're going to go for 2, and the analytics tell you to go for 2 more these days, you got to have better play calls on those 2-point conversions. Tennessee sniffed those things out. I'm not saying this is a game that Syracuse could have won. Tennessee was clearly the superior team out there, but there were moments when Syracuse was hanging in this thing, but every time they threatened. I mean, literally, there's a score, there's momentum, everybody's feeling good. Tennessee busts out a 73-yard touchdown pass right after that. I mean, every time Tennessee had an answer. That's what good teams do. That's what great teams do. Good teams hang in these games. Great teams win these kind of games. And Syracuse had their moments last year where they looked great in these situations, and they're going to have plenty of more of those opportunities coming up. Clemson being the next one in just a few weeks. A couple more from our insiders. Connor B says tackling is a problem per usual, but on the bright side, Jonte Cook looks like everything we've been wanted. Need to figure out these illegal man-down field penalties and illegal shifts. I'm hoping some of that's first game jitters and first game stuff, and sometimes refs call that tighter than they should, but definitely something to keep an eye on there. Now, a couple of you guys brought this up. I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure on this, but just something to kind of note in case it's a thing. I don't know if it was brought up in postgame or not, but I didn't see Jonte Cook out there in the second half of this game as much as I did in the first half of this game, or maybe they were mixing in other guys. I'm not 100% sure on that, but a lot of you guys were asking about that. I'm not sure about that. We'll check on it, look at the situation coming. I think he's fine. I haven't heard anything as we speak here live at 5:45 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, but just something to keep an eye on there. And boy, you don't want to lose a guy like that who clearly has a connection with Angeli, made a huge 4th down catch, a couple other big catches for this team. He's a weapon, and I think eventually he's going to make people forget about Trevor Pena right away because I don't want to say fills the same role. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but can do, if not everything, maybe a little bit more than Trevor Pena can. He's quick. He's a water bug. He's all over the place. He gets open, and Angeli and Cook really seem to be building up a chemistry at this point. From Gary, who says, I'm encouraged. Offense put the defense in a couple of short fields. Turnovers were pretty bad today, too. That stuff can get cleaned up. Our ability to run the football against an SEC front was impressive. This is the Yassine Willis that I have envisioned. This is the Yassine Willis I've seen at practice. This is the Willis that I became the president of his fan club right away. I bought stock early on. And to see him go out there and hold his own and at times challenge SEC defenders like that, playing with that confidence, stretching out over the goal line, bowling people over, like that's one of those guys that Fran is recruiting. We are upgrading the talent. You could say he can hang against anybody on that schedule. Clemson included, right? I mean, he's going to have bad games. Everybody does. But you do not go into a game with that player and with that running game thinking they can't hang with this team, right? They've got a guy can hang with big defenses. From Jared, who says, I still think we're going in the right direction as a team. A lot of mistakes out there, but I think you can see potential next year and moving forward. This would have been an embarrassment under Dino Babers. A couple more from you guys. Cuse end zone, not liking what he's seeing from Elijah Robinson's defense. Couldn't even cover. And as long as Robinson is around, he will hold Fran Brown back as a coach. He's a nightmare of a coach who still brings the same issues from the year before. We'll see if Robinson can clean that up because a lot of question marks about tackling, about pass rush, and some things that have got to improve if Syracuse is going to compete. Not only in those remaining high-level games like Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, SMU, just to beat good ACC teams on the road or at home. You can't be doing this game in and game out. So how much of that was a game one thing and how much of that is a philosophy thing that they just can't figure out. And finally from Jack, who says, I came into this game with confidence in our defense and significant questions about our offense. I'm leaving this game with those completely flipped, right? So the shame of it is, and thanks for all your great comments, not only throughout the game and through the week, but always to our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Great stuff from you guys there. So I think the shame of this too is the statement you could have made today, even if you didn't win. If Syracuse took Tennessee down to the wire, if people were seeing break-ins, watching, let's face it, Ohio State, Texas was the big ratings getter today. Shout out to Lee Corso, by the way. One last headgear. He ends up being right in his last headgear. He picked Ohio State in his first headgear and Ohio State in his last one today. Shout out to Lee Corso, an amazing man who just, what he did for college football, you almost can't even measure it, right? Particularly for the game day and what those pregame shows have become. You're a star, sweetheart. And thanks to Lee Corso for, man, just a one of one for sure. It was great to see that amazing tribute to him, not only today, but all week long leading up to college game day today. But people were watching Ohio State, Texas. And the break-ins they're seeing is Tennessee's just handling business. So Syracuse doesn't stand out in the right way there. Now, here's an interesting twist on this. Syracuse's own social media accounts were telling you this week. Let me pull up the tweet. Okay. Give me 1 sec here, guys. I got it right here. So they were telling you TV ratings now have an impact on the success of the Orange under the ACC's new revenue model. Make sure you're always watching the Orange because, as they put it, every Cuse click counts, right? So if you're getting your doors blown off by Tennessee, you're going to lose some clicks there. You're already competing with Ohio State, Texas, so you're already at a disadvantage. Late in the game, they dump Syracuse, Tennessee to ESPN News so they can put Florida State, Alabama on. So the every click counts thing, not helping today when you don't show and you get outmatched. In essentially, not technically prime time, but that's a prime time game. Right, that was the headline of my Quick Takes column. Hope you guys can read that on syracuse.com. They weren't ready for prime time. After that season last year, 10 wins and all the good feelings about it, they come out in game one, and they had their moments, don't get me wrong, but by and large, we're not ready for prime time. We're not ready to take on an SEC team for 4 quarters. Think of the break-ins to Ohio State. Oh, we got something brewing in Atlanta. Syracuse is giving Tennessee a run here. Like, think of the vibes that would be there now. So and it's a new season. So this would be the case anyway. But now you got to prove it all over again, right? Now Fran Brown, this coach. Whoops, we're back. Sorry, kicked me out there for a second. Don't know what happened there, but we're back. Anyway, so what I was saying is now you got to prove it all over again, right? Now you've got to show once again in a new year why you won 10 games last year, why people feel good about this coaching staff, why there is momentum around Syracuse football. They didn't execute on that today, but they got plenty more chances to do it throughout the season. That is going to do it. It kicked me out a little early, but I was wrapping up anyway. I don't know why it kicked me out, but we're wrapping up as we speak. But just a reminder to please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube to Syracuse Sports so you know when new episodes of Syracuse Sports go up. We had a great week last week. We talked to ESPN's Louis Riddick, a couple of great previews of Syracuse, Tennessee. We did a Syracuse football over-unders with our Syracuse Sports Insiders. That was a lot of fun and plenty more to come this week on Syracuse Sports and upcoming, so please subscribe to that. We are going to be doing this post-game show live after every Syracuse football game throughout the season, so please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. You can see it on Facebook as well, our Syracuse Orange Football Facebook page, so make sure you turn on the notifications for all that so you know when we're up and cooking and live. I do send the link to our Syracuse Sports Insiders so they know exactly when we're going up, and we are going to be live doing the post-game show, so we'll be doing that all year long. You got Syracuse and UConn home opener next week. That is a noon kickoff. So just like today, we'll be kicking it live here on the post-game show in the afternoon once that one wraps up from the JMA Wireless Dome. So we'll be doing that all year. Syracuse Sports to come all year. Plenty of coverage, of course, on syracuse.com as well. That's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Sports Live, our Syracuse football post-game show presented by Krause Health. We will talk to you next time, guys. You enjoy the rest of your Labor Day weekend.